Are you on the Twitch just to see if we're live?
I am on the Twitch. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They're really hard. So I thought I'd take a slightly.
Hey, we have some people joining. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning. Everybody is ready for phase 2. Oh, probably need to mute the Twitch. Hello, where are you joining from today, guys? Okay. Yeah, Ashish is missing. Someone already noticed. Hey, good morning. We have people from London. Nice. India, Australia, Germany. Okay. Is there any plan to start phase 1 again? That's a good question. So all of the videos for phase 1 are public on YouTube. And I don't know, this is the BeSA program 2022. We might do a 2023. It's something that we'll have to discuss with Prasad, Jamila, Ashish, you know.
Probably in Q4 we might start another batch. There is a lot of questions that are being asked, about, the second version. So yeah, we still haven't thought about, when we are going to start, but definitely there will be another batch for sure. And there are a few other ideas that we are contemplating on. So in case if you have any suggestions, feel free to let us know on the LinkedIn group that, in which direction we should be thinking about, yeah. So we are contemplating few things that how we can continue, adding value to all our viewers.
Yeah, and this was the first iteration of this program, so your feedback is super important. Whatever we can improve or the things that you think have been missing, please share with us. So next time, we put this in the program and everybody can benefit from it. By the way, I see a lot of people asking about Ashish, so we need to give some news. Okay, Ashish left the BeSA program. I'm kidding. He's on vacation. Ashish is taking some vacation, very well-deserved vacation. He traveled to see his family, so he's not going to be there this week and maybe the week after. I'm not sure. But
He's
Ashish,
off for, I think he will not be joining us for 3 weeks in a row, and then
wow, okay,
for the final session
he will
of
be there.
the BESA program, which is there, then he would be here. Ashish the legend would be back for the final session.
Great. Kids, sorry if I scared you guys. Yeah, see, he's traveling, so he will be back. Thanks. I guess we can start now, guys. We have JJ with us today. We have Prasad, and maybe James is going to join us to help with the Q&A. And Alex also. Alex is not going to be there today. So we're good to go. All right. So I'm going to say goodbye to JJ and Prasad, and I'm going to start sharing my screen. Now we're going through everything that Ashish has been doing in the background, All right. So how's that? Prasad, yep, just can you give me a quick check?
Yeah,
Of the...
it looks
Yeah,
it looks good.
amazing.
So, yeah,
So I'm
the
going to go
floor is
off
all
the
yours.
camera.
Yeah.
I'm going to go off the camera, and then, I think we've got a good audience to get started. Today is the first day of track 2, which is about all of the behavioral skills that are required for solution architects. Okay, so we talked a lot about the technical skills. Now we're going to focus on the behavior. All right, so that's what this is about. Someone said there's no audio? Okay. Can you hear me now, or can you hear me? Okay. Right, can you hear me, guys? Just checking. Yeah, okay, great. Sorry for that. So starting again. So here's the agenda for today, guys. So first of all, I'm going to tell you about how to handle your customer meetings. Okay. For some of you, you might have met with customers in the past. For some of you, this is something completely new. So I'm going to share some best practices to best prepare your meetings, and how do you own the room when you are in the room with the customer and their team and your team. How do you navigate the conversation? And we're going to talk about how do you prepare for the next steps, okay? Because ultimately, you're going to be helping this company not during one meeting, but during multiple meetings, okay? And then Prasad is going to talk about, how do you showcase your consulting skills during an interview? The interview is the moment where you have to shine. And Prasad, he knows about how to shine. So he's going to share some of, the things that you can do here. How do you showcase your skills? And finally, Jamila is going to help you to obtain your AWS certifications. Jamila is really good with certifications. I think when I joined, and she's in my team at AWS, when I joined, I think after that, she got 2 or 3 certifications in like 6 months. And I thought, what the hell, Jamila, you are on fire. So she's going to share with you, what she does. I'm really keen to listen to that as well, so I can learn from her as well. Okay. So, well, before we start, congratulations. I want to ask, who has been there for 9 weeks in a row now? Anyone? Or is this anyone joining us for the first time? Great. Okay. Wow. That's fantastic. And thank you so much. It's really great to see that, because honestly, it gives us a lot of motivation. So thank you so much. We see that there is value in what we do. So that's super important. Great. So congratulations. Okay. So Ashish delivered 8 sessions, right? And we focused a lot on the technical aspects. And Ashish did a great job with analogy so that you guys could understand how EC2 is working, how S3 is working, microservices, and he gave some really good analogies that you can now reuse with your customers, okay? Now, the reality is that, when it comes to becoming a solutions architect and to do that job effectively, the SA is more than a technical resource, all right? We do actually more than that. It's great to know about, if I take AWS, the 200 plus services. It's great if you can memorize all of them, although it's really difficult, I have to say. And I don't think there's many people who memorize all of them, because they keep changing, they keep evolving, new features, etc. But you can also learn about the 90 plus services at GCP if you're a Google person, and the 200 plus Azure services if you want to. Now, the thing is, at some point, if you just know the technical aspects, that's not going to be enough. Now, in the name, in the word solutions architect, there is the word solution, okay? And that's really important, because your job is to help the customer with solutions, okay? And what these solutions are about, they help the customers to achieve business outcomes, all right? Anyone can tell me what are business outcomes or examples of business outcomes, just to be sure that that resonates with everybody. What's a business outcome, for example? Okay, the value, okay. Okay, so that, anything else? Increase sales, that is a business incomes. Increase sales, increase the revenue, lower cost, reduce the cost of operation or whatever. Yeah, profit more customers. Okay, save time, exactly, yeah. Reputation, yeah, Yeah, perfect. So these are really, really good examples. Now, whatever you are doing with the customer, if they go and pay for your solution, it's not because they're excited about the solution in itself. It's because IT is an enabler for them to achieve their business outcomes. And whenever you are in the room with the customer, it's your job to understand, first of all, what are the business outcomes they want to achieve, and then you want to work backwards. That's kind of an AWS process, but it applies everywhere. You can work backwards from these business outcomes to the ideal architecture for the customer to run their workloads. Okay, reduce price. I also like this one. Okay, so who knows these guys and who is playing? Don't be ashamed. Who is playing the Fortnite? I don't play it, to be honest. I barely know what this is about. I know everybody have to kill each other on some kind of island. Anyone playing Fortnite? Or do you have kids playing Fortnite, for example? If you don't, or if you don't want to admit, it's okay. So Fortnite is a company, sorry, not a company, sorry. It's a game, they belong to Epic Game. And, Fortnite, they are an AWS customer. It's public information. It's not something confidential that I am sharing here. There's a lot of information about them and what they do with AWS on the internet if you want to find out more about them. But, even though I'm not in the gaming industry, and I was not in the room with Fortnite with their solution architect when they started discussing, okay, what they're going to do, I bet their first question was definitely not, hey, can you please tell us about S3? Can you tell us about EC2? It sounds cool. No, their question was probably something like, hey, we need Fortnite to be accessible by millions of users in the world, anywhere in the world. It needs to be highly available, it needs to be highly secure, and we want all users to have the same consistent experience. All right? That's probably the kind of business outcomes that they were looking for. They didn't ask for S3, okay, or any other of the services. Now, what the solution architects, what they did, they sat down in the room, they did that, working backward process, and she kept the customer's goal in mind at every stage of the process. And that's super important because at some point, when you talk about the architecture, the availability, there's many ways to make a solution highly available, but some ways will cost more than others. And if you focus on the outcomes, you can help the customer to make trade-offs. Okay, so we're going to make that solution a little bit less expensive. It's going to be a bit less available. At the same time, you cannot have everything. And some of you, maybe you already, have had this kind of conversation with your customers. If you're customer facing, you cannot have everything unless you put the price for. Okay, but keep the goals in mind. It's going to help you to navigate the conversation. All right. Now, just to tell you about Fortnite, now today, with those solutions they're running, they have 2 million plus players in the world. They have more than 8 million concurrent users. That has a price in terms of architecture for the customers, for the players to have a really, really good experience. Okay? Right. So let's talk about now your first customer meeting and how you are going to prepare for that customer meeting. Now, first of all, I'm really keen to get some feedback from the audience. Tell me what is good to prepare. When you're going to meet with your customer for the first time, let's do a little bit of brainstorming. What do you think is good to prepare in advance? I'm not getting much answers. Okay, research the company. Okay, learn about the customer. Okay, what do you do to learn about the customer? Okay, the organization and business. Okay, know their requirements. Wait, imagine that you have never met with them, so you don't know yet their requirements. Okay, the company needs competition. Okay, know the audience. Oh yes. And I'm asking you because maybe in my list I don't have everything. So let's I can use also what you're saying to combine. Know the audience, do a little bit of LinkedIn research, look at their backgrounds, super important. Could be the case they have ever worked for your company before, you never know. Okay? Agenda, oh yes, this is so important. You cannot go without the agenda. Okay, look at the previous business reports. Yes. Okay, and the industry they are in. Okay, so I mean, some of you have already mentioned some really, really good things. So preparation is key. You want to read their annual reports. It is insane the amount of information that you're going to get in there. Okay. Now these annual reports, some of them it's 50 pages. You don't have to read the 50 pages, but you really want to hear about what the company is about and their future plans, because they will put their plans in there for their customers to read, for their investors to read, for the company to read. Okay. From that report, again, the key initiatives, and also from their websites, a lot of them will have a press release. So they could be posting every 2 days, every 2 weeks. You also want to read about the press release. There was one pro tip that I can share with you. This is what I do with my own customer. I put, how to say, I'm not sure how to explain, but basically on Gmail, I created a notification. Every time there is something new about my customer, I get an email and I get all of the links, I get all the headers where it says something about what my customer is doing. And then I just click on that and I look at, okay, they just launched this new product in Germany, for example, or in Sweden. Okay, that's good information for me to know. So when I'm in front of the customer, I show that I care about what they do. And I'm not just here to sell a solution. I'm here to be a trusted advisor. And I know about their business. You're going to build a lot of credibility if you do these kind of things. Okay, the Google Alerts, exactly. That's exactly what I do. Or you can also use the RSS feeds. Know their competition. Someone mentioned that. It's super important to know what their competitor are doing. Because you can also learn, and what the competition is doing is going to give you more insight about the industry. Someone mentioned about the industry. Okay, does the customer mean individual person? The customer means the company in this case. It could be you have one person in the room, you have 10 people in the room, they all represent the customer. Okay. Now, someone else mentioned agenda. It's super important to prepare an agenda with what are the things that you're going to discuss, what are the things you want them to discuss, okay? Because ultimately, when you go in the room, it's going to be the customer talking more than you, because it's your job to find out what is it that they want, how you can help them. So if they have to prepare some kind of slides, you got to put it in the agenda. And I say that because you would be surprised how much time it happens with ASA roles or account managers that there's a meeting that is set up and it says business review, but that doesn't mean anything. Or talk about next steps or something not descriptive. First of all, if it's not descriptive enough, you won't have the right people in the room. So you want to really set clear expectations as per what is going to happen and what are you going to achieve by the end of this meeting. Okay, yeah, we're going to talk about that, the listen more than talk. Super important. Right, let's look at a quick example here. We're going to go back to Epic Game. So if you go to Epic Game and if you type on Google Epic Game annual reports, I was looking at this just to give you an example. This is, I scrolled down and I found this. What's planned for Epic Game Store's player in 2022? Even if you're the solution architect, this is super important. Why? Because look at what I highlighted here. What's planned? Okay, eye catcher. Voice on platform. Okay, eye catcher. I'm not a gaming person, so I'm not sure how that translates into technical solutions and so on. But if I were a solution architect on Epic Game, these would be my buzzwords here. Okay. Okay. Right. So community features. Okay, they want to create a community feature. Okay. Game Hub to stay up to date on game updates. Expanding Epic Wallet to the rest of the world. Okay, they want to expand to other other countries. That's really interesting. Continued improvements to launcher speed and performance. Okay, some performance, more performance needed here. Any keywords, anything that looks like it's tied to an outcome, you want to take a note of it, all right? And then during the discussion with the customer, you want to see how whatever they talk about, it maps with that, with those outcomes, okay? Super important. And again, you're going to build a lot of credibility here. Okay, so who is going to that meeting? Solution architect is going, he or she. You will be working with an account manager, he or she again, and your account manager is your buddy, all right? And I'm talking about the core solutions architect, the sales engineer, if we talk about Google. I don't know how they call them at Azure. It could be a sales I don't know, system engineer. Every company will have different words, okay? But if you are a solutions architect, for example, at AWS, a core solution architect, you will be aligned with an account manager. You two, you are going in the room and you are going to meet the customer. Now, who else? Who else could be joining you? Yeah, someone said the TAM, the technical account manager. So these people are super important. They manage the customer accounts. They look at performance improvement. For example, if the customer is raising tickets, they will take care of the tickets. They provide a reporting about how the resources are being used. They say, hey, here you've been using this EC2 instance non-stop for 1 year or for 6 months. Maybe you want to switch to reserved instance so you can save cost. They do this kind of advisory, job with the customer. Okay, let me look at what else did you say? Engagement manager. Yeah, these are at AWS engagement manager. These are professional services people. So yeah, hey, guess just what you said. Technical account manager, professional services. They can be in the room as well. It could be that, they need to be introduced to the customer. It could be that the customer, they already have a solution. They want to migrate on AWS or Google or whatever. Professional services should be in the room. Okay, who else could be in the room? Okay, is the TAM needed if the customer is not having an infrastructure yet? Yes, actually, because the TAM is going. So let me give you an example. You can have customers that are already on AWS and they have a new team. They made an acquisition, for example, of another company, and that company is going to inherit from all the services that the TAM can offer. If you meet them for the first time, you want to bring the TAM because the TAM is going to say, this is what are the things that I can do for you. So it could, in that context, for example, you can bring the TAM. Okay, customer, all right. So I'm going to tell you who else can be in the room. Support. Imagine you have a customer that has already been using your services, they never contacted you, but somehow, it's been failing many times and now they want to meet you for the first time. You want to bring support with you just so you can review some support cases and also discuss how those cases are going to be resolved in due time. Sometimes we're not invited just to talk about, what we are going to do, the cool stuff, but we can be invited to talk about how can things be done better, okay? And finally, partner, okay? A partner, because some of the customers, they work with partners that deliver solutions for them. They've been working, for many years together. And it makes sense to have the partner in the room because they have a really good relationship with the customer. So they can be your ally as well, okay? Someone said procurement. Maybe I've never been in a meeting yet with procurement. Maybe because this is beyond my pay grades. But yeah, I guess, yeah, definitely. I would say procurements, they probably come towards the end when there is a deal, when there is pricing, and procurement, they're here to negotiate, bring the price down. So procurement, typically we see them at the end, but could be that, I don't know, they are free on that day, they just want to listen to the meeting and they turn up. Okay, so will the customer also have a solution architect on their side? I hope, I really, really hope. Typically, they have a technical person. Now, that technical person, in my experience, they are not always very familiar with our technology. And I'm not talking about AWS specifically. I've worked for other companies. It's our job to enable them, okay? And if they don't know, it's okay. We're here to help. Okay, partner can be VMware, absolutely. If you think VMware on VMC, VMware Cloud on AWS, yeah, it's also one of the solutions where you ideally you want to have VMware in the room. Okay, so now let's talk about during the meeting. Okay, so during the meeting, someone mentioned. Sorry, that's the next one. So you want to own the room. Okay, Allianz Partner, TCS, HCL, Wipro, Tata, all of these guys, absolutely. Now, when you are in the meeting, well, first of all, you own the room, okay? And either you or your account manager, typically your account manager will also do a great job at owning the room, but you own the room, meaning there is an agenda that you share with the customer, okay? You got to stick to the agenda or to adapt. But if you stick to an agenda and at some point, things go all over the place and you start going, into discussions, like very deep technical discussions, and there's a CFO in the room, for example, you are going to annoy that CFO or all the non-technical people. So own the room, bring things back on track, okay? Even if your account manager goes and talk about too many things, bring the meeting back on track, all right? You own it. It's you who set up that meeting, all right? Be an active listener. Somebody mentioned that before. You want to let the customer talk more than you, okay? Who chairs this meeting? Well, it's if it's in your offices, you invite the customer, you invited the customer, you chair the meeting because it's your agenda, okay? If the customer invited you and they set the agenda, they chair the meeting, okay? Right, be an active listener, take notes. Remember these annual reports about Fortnite, Epic Games, that we reviewed. Take notes and try to map everything they say with the business outcomes. And then ask questions, does that relate to the improvement around the launcher, for example? Or does that relate, what you just said here, does that relate to expanding Epic Game to Australia? They're probably already in Australia, but you see what I mean? Try to map and to show the customer you've done your homework. You didn't just turn up to listen, see what is it you can sell them. You turn up knowing their business, okay? Now, how to avoid technical jargon with C-level meetings. You got to prepare here. And you got to avoid actually the technical jargon. It's all about value. It's not, you shouldn't actually use a technical word unless somebody asks you a question directly and you can answer it very quickly, less than 30 seconds. But if you have C-level meetings, they don't want to hear S3, for example. I keep saying S3 because it's an easy service, but I don't want to hear API or whatever, okay? It's not about, it shouldn't be actually technical if C-level is in the room. But with startups, C-level, you will find some technical people. It really depends. Okay, so take notes. Now, again, match the initiatives of the annual report finding. Adapt as much as you can. It could be the case that you have prepared an agenda. For example, you said the first 2 hours, the customer is going to tell you about their business, and you have a few things to share with them. And unfortunately, the people who need to share about the business, the people that you needed to be in the room, they're not here, but they send someone else. That person doesn't really know. It's quite annoying, right? You gotta adapt. So the way you can adapt is you can have a backup plan. So you have things that you can share with the customer. So for example, you can ask, okay, do you know about the cloud, for example? Do you know about the value? Do you want to discuss about a specific thing? They will say, okay, we want to understand how the cloud is going to reduce our cost of operations. You got to be ready to talk about these things, the basic things. What's the cloud? You should be able to talk about that, for example. How do we work with technical account managers? If you have a technical account manager, that technical manager can step up and start talking about how they work with the customer. But you cannot just say, okay, let's cancel the meeting and leave. You can always adapt and say, okay, you're not the right person to tell me about the business, but maybe we can share some insights about how we can help you and give some customer references, for example. Okay, but things can really go wrong sometimes. Okay, how do you start the conversation? You let the customer start first. So you start the conversation, you do a round of introduction, you understand who is each individual in the room, take notes. You ask them about their expectations. What is it you want to have achieved by the end of this meeting? And then you start the conversation with typically the agenda. Okay, so the first part will be customer will tell you about their business. They will just open up. Okay, and they will talk about their initiatives, what they're about, and what challenges they're trying to solve. All right. To start, you still start with the customer. We don't start talking about how great you are. Okay. Okay. So it could be the case that you go to your first customer meeting and these guys already know your technology because they have been using it for 2 years, for example, and they just want to meet you to see, to discuss what's next. They didn't need you for how to get started with your services. So it could be the case that you go there and it's a technical meeting. They put on the screen a diagram, an architecture, and they talk you through this, and they just want to have your opinion. Okay, it could be the case. Now, these meetings, I have to say, after 1 year at Amazon Web Services, I'm still a little bit worried because I never know what kind of service they are going to show me. And it's, with more than 200 services, it's likely that there is one service I will not know about. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to navigate the conversation now? Well, it's not impossible to navigate the conversation, all right? Because you can rely on a framework. In AWS case, and I can only talk about AWS, something I really like to rely on is the well-architected framework. Okay, if you type that on Google, it's a framework that gives you best practices to design workloads on the cloud, on the AWS cloud. And it covers security, performance, availability, operational excellence, and cost. And so I start basically, of course, I know the well-architected review because I read that document many times. And I ask questions, okay, how do you achieve availability today with this design? Okay, how do you achieve, how do you secure your environment? And based on the best practices that I have read in the past, and there's 6 pillars, there's sustainability as well. Thank you for reminding me of that. And I ask questions based on what I have seen in that document. And that's how I navigate the conversation and will look for areas of improvement. Okay. So that's how you can get away without knowing. If you don't know services, again, be honest as well. If they throw something at you don't know, don't pretend, oh yeah, maybe this works like this. You will lose credibility if they find out that you basically try to lie or to pretend that you know about a service. Use the well-architected framework to navigate the conversation. Review this, use the 6 pillars to help you coming up with questions, relevant questions, and then be honest when you don't know and tell them, okay, I don't know for now, but imagine they ask a question about security, right? You don't know, like compliance and so on, PCI, DSS, and you don't know. Okay, are you the right person to discuss this in the next meeting? Okay, no, it's Bob. Okay, can I have Bob's email address? They give you Bob's email address. You schedule a meeting with Bob, with your security expert. You already have increased your network within the customer industry. Within the customer company. Okay. All right. Anything else that you would like to add to this list, guys? And if technical meeting, do you ask if they're aware of AWS World? You can actually. I mean, if you're going to navigate the conversation based on the well-architected framework, you don't have to tell them. But if you are meeting them to review their design, of course, yes, you need to mention the well-architected framework because this is something they can use at their own time. This is so they can do the well-architected review alone without you, or you can tell them about the well-architected framework, and you can schedule a session with them. Okay. Action items, absolutely. Will the customer during the email season? Yes, they should share their challenges. You're here to identify their challenges. Okay. All right. So after the meeting, and someone said it right, you gotta have actions. By the way, before you finish the meeting, you need to summarize all the actions with the customer. Today we discussed this A, B, C, D, and we have these action items, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And you want to have an owner on the customer side for each of these actions, okay? And then you want to send that email, either you or your account manager, you want to send that email to the customer with the summary, the actions, and you want to track those, okay? That's part of your homework, by the way. You want to track those activities. You might have a project manager if you're lucky in your team. In my team, we have a customer solution manager. They also do project management. They track the actions. It's great. When that person is not available, I do it proactively. It's important you do it proactively because within your organization, nobody is asking you to do that. But if you do it proactively, you're building a brand. Okay, people will trust you within your organization that you know how to make people accountable, and you are accountable as well. You can be a trusted person, and you don't want to be that person that is just reactive at work and wait for people to tell you what to do. You want to be that proactive person that goes around the angles, okay? It takes a bit of time, but then I promise you, you're going to build a really good brand if you do that kind of stuff. And start your homework. Okay, so your homework, maybe you got to prepare an enablement session. Maybe you got to prepare a demo. Maybe you're going to find a specialist in, I don't know, could be Blazor, or I don't know, Glue or ETL, for example, machine learning. Find those specialists, those experts who are going to help you and be part of that project. Proof of concept and also others, okay? Absolutely, proof of concepts. Am I missing? Yeah, I thought this was a little bit, okay, I'm just going to display everything. Yeah, proactively monitor actions. Let's have a look at an example, okay? We talked about some best practices. Let's talk about an example here. You have met the customer, you had a really good meeting, they told you about their business challenges, about the business outcomes they want to achieve. And here, the scenario is the following. Company is called Unicorn. They have a lot of farms. They basically, they make veggies and they sell those veggies to restaurants, to other companies, and then we buy them from the market, we buy them from groceries, okay? But now with climate change, it's quite annoying because they lose a lot of crops because the weather is difficult to predict, it's not good, and now they want to do more precision agriculture. And they want to connect the farms to the AWS cloud so that the farmer, he or she, he has this application, he can look at the temperature, humidity of the crops. They can also get notification when something is wrong. Say the temperature is 35 degrees. They know something is wrong, they can take actions, okay? And they don't lose the crops, which leads to increased revenue as well and to reduce the loss. Big business outcomes, okay? Is this a real life use case? Yes, yes, it is. And I think this one, I got it from the AWS reference, public reference. I think the company is called Yanmar, something like this. But what I'm going to tell you, the design I'm going to show you, it's my own design. It has nothing to do with Yanmar, or I'm just, the use case, a lot of organization in agriculture will have similar use case, precision agriculture, for example. But the design I'm going to share with you next, I prepared them for you, okay? So it's not something that an AWS customer is doing, or I'm not aware, okay? Right, so you understand the challenges. Now you have to come back with some kind of design. They said, hey, we're not AWS people. Can you please help us with how the solution is going to look like, and maybe some kind of pricing, okay? So Your second meeting is going to be a whiteboard delivery. And I'm not going to do a full whiteboard delivery here because, I also want to let Jamila and Prasad share their bits and you to ask questions, and we can dedicate a full session on that. But I just want to share a few things with you as a teaser for what are the things we're going to do next. Okay, so here's the architecture that I put together. Okay, you're in the customer meeting and you throw this at them. What's good, what's bad? Tell me. And yes, Mendix, this is suitable for IoT solution. Absolutely. You guessed it right. There's AWS IoT Core. Don't look at the services. It really doesn't matter what service is in there. It absolutely doesn't matter. But tell me what's good, what's bad. Like I just threw a design at you. Like, tell me what's good, what's bad. Too much jargon. Okay. Random word for non-tech people. Well, at this point, you have agreed that this is going to be a technical meeting where you're going to be a whiteboard delivery. So it's okay to have technical people in the room and to have some, some technical words. Looks like data lake, but I don't see. Business objectives are not present. Okay. Well, okay. So I'll tell you what is really wrong with this design. It's a lot of information to process for someone who is not familiar with AWS. Okay. If you throw this, people are just going to navigate around. They will think, am I expected to know what's on the design? They will not get it, okay? So, too much details, it's too much. Okay, so there's a way that we do, and I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to switch to, what do we do? I have to say that. What do we do when we deliver whiteboards with customers? Okay, so let me share something else. And by the way, feel free to share what you use, to when you do whiteboarding, for example. I'm really curious to discover some new ways. Share screen, okay. All right, good. So boom, 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 and I'm removing everything. Anyone knows Draw.io? Have you ever heard of Draw.io? Yeah, okay, someone does. Anyone else using Draw.io or? Okay, good. All right. So it's one tool. It doesn't mean that you have to use Draw.io to do whiteboarding with the customer, but I find it super useful. Ultimately, at some point, I will have maybe an iPad Pro and then do live design with the customer. I find that the iPad Pro a little bit expensive, if you want my opinion, but who am I to judge what Apple can decide in terms of pricing? Okay, so basically, you are with the customer. You want to do this whiteboard exercise. So first of all, you need to tell them what you're going to be discussing. You're going to be discussing, how they're going to connect their farm onto AWS and how that farm and how the farmers are going to retrieve the data with their application. Okay. So first of all, we're going to go step by step, and I won't be able to see much of what you are saying. I only have one screen today, guys, so let me just arrange this a little bit. Okay. All right. So first of all, you want to take them step by step. So you want to start with the farm, all right? So this is the farm, and this is where you are collecting data. And then this is AWS, all right? So from AWS, this is where we will find the services that will allow you to ingest your data in AWS, all right? The first service that I want to introduce to you here is AWS IoT Core, all right? Now, you can see AWS IoT Core as a point of entry for all of your IoT data into AWS. Now, I chose the service because it is fully managed by AWS, which means that you don't have to provision any resources. You don't have to think about its scalability. You don't have to think about its performance. You don't have to think about updating it. or replicating the data. We do this for you. It's a fully managed service. That's what it means. And that's important because it means that you don't have to focus about these things, and you can focus about your application. You can focus about what brings value to your customer. Okay, so the application. Now from there, you are able to register your IoT devices on AWS IoT Core, and you're also able to secure the connectivity between your devices and AWS IoT Core. So to secure those devices, essentially, AWS IoT Core is going to provide an identity to your devices. So only your devices are able to send data to AWS. Okay, and no one can just plug a random device and send something wrong, for example. On top of that, that connectivity is going to be fully encrypted, so no one can see the traffic. Okay. Now that the data is in the clouds, we need to make this data visible to the farmers. Okay. So the first thing is we need to have this data stored in a database. All right. Now, in regards to the database, my recommendation for you is to use a time series database, TimeStream in this case. And again, TimeStream is a fully managed AWS service, which means, again, you don't need to provision it, you don't need to maintain the database, you don't need to manage the hardware or to take care of the availability. We replicate the database for you, and the performance is going to scale with your needs. All right. And finally, you pay as you go. All right. So you only pay based on your usage, based on your business growth. Okay. From a security perspective as well, you can mention that TimeStream is fully encrypted. So, the data is secure. But look at what is really important here. I talked about two AWS services. I talked about the operational aspect, meaning they don't have to manage anything. It's all done by AWS. I talked about the security aspect. I mentioned that AWS IoT Core is going to secure the channel here, is going to secure the IoT devices by giving them an identity. I talked about the fact that this everything is encrypted on TimeStream. I talked about the availability. They don't have to deploy another database, another availability zone. That's already done in the background. Same for IoT Core, okay? And can you think about what I've done here by doing that? Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry, if I could zoom in. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I only have one screen today, guys, so it's a little bit difficult. Okay, we'll just navigate like this. Right. So again, I talked about security, I talked about availability, I talked about performance, I talked about operational excellence. What is it I've done here? I've actually used the well-architected framework to talk about the technical value of the solution. Okay? So that is how you can navigate as well, how you pitch a service. It's not just TimeStream, time series database because it's good for IoT. It's fully managed and so on. Then if they have more questions, okay, tell us about how the data is stored in TimeStream. Then you can tell them, okay, you've got the hot tier for the real-time data. You've got the a cold tier for the data that is seven days old. You don't need to put this data in a hot tier. You can leave it in the lower performance tier. Then you can talk about more, more technical aspect if they ask you. But don't put yourself in the rabbit hole unless the customer asks you a question and then you also want to give a quick answer and move on. You gotta have to deliver a full architecture here. You don't have time to go in each individual details, okay? You wanna tease them enough so they see the value of how the solution you're putting together is going to help them to focus on their business and achieve their business outcomes. Okay. Now the use of TimeStream, it's a time series database. It's only a database for IoT data, for example, or for clickstream, for example, anything with a timestamp. Okay. Right. The rabbit hole, you want to avoid it. Okay. Do you see benefits doing this diagram in meetings, explain step-by-step process? That's how I do it for people who are new to AWS. For people who are much more comfortable with AWS, maybe I could use the entire diagram and then, go through it, go through the services one by one. But it really depends on the audience. I would try to adapt as much as possible, actually. Okay. Now, you will notice as well, I've gone for managed services and not EC2, that stuff that they have to manage, super important for operational excellence. Okay, now let's carry on a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna try it. I won't be able to see what you guys say, but because I need to actually use a little bit. Okay, right. Okay, hopefully you can see that right. Now, to serve the request from your application, remember the customer, they've got this application, they need to get data from AWS. So to serve the request from your application, we will expose a public API using API Gateway. Again, it's a fully managed AWS service. If you are not familiar with what an API is, an API Gateway, basically it allows your application. So it allows your application to send a request to the database, and that API gateway is going to handle those requests. It allows applications to talk to each other, an application to retrieve data from a database. It handles the request, all right? You can have people in the room, they don't know that it's the first time they hear API in their life. So you got to appreciate that any acronym that you throw at them, make sure that you explain, okay? Now, API Gateway doesn't know how to query a database directly. It only handles the request from the application. And the request from the application here can be, give me the average temperature for the last 2 hours, okay? So to translate that request for the time stream database, this is what we're using AWS Lambda. Okay, it's Lambda. So Lambda is a function, and it's a service, again, it's a serverless service managed by AWS that allows you to execute a short piece of code. And in that case, that piece of code is going to allow you to retrieve the average, temperature for the last 2 hours from time stream. Okay. Now, every time the API gateway is going to be called by the application, it is going to trigger the execution of the Lambda function, and Lambda is going to retrieve the data from the time stream database. It will get the data, return it to API gateway, and API gateway is going to return the information to the application. So the farmer can see from the application the last 2 hours average temperature, okay? And then you can just move on, like if they need to have some dashboard capabilities, say a big screen in the farm that everyone can see, then they are going to, they can use Grafana, for example, and then Grafana, again, is going to query the time stream database and then display the information with, I think it's every 30 seconds or maybe every 10 seconds you can refresh that. So it's almost like real time. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. The rest is pretty much, it's just like, adding the other layers, but you could see like how step by step, I'm just gonna go back to the chat, step by step, you can take the customer through how, the architecture is designed. Now, I got some questions here around Route 53. This design is one example of, how it could be. It's not the right answer. You could have many more services on top of that, or less services. I guess, yeah, less services, maybe not. But you can have many more services. You can improve that. If you ask 10 architects to solve a problem, they will come up with 10 different solutions. So there's no right answer. I just wanted to show you the process of explaining and take people through complex, services, complex design, so everybody can digest. Okay, it doesn't matter what service is behind, it's more about the methodology. All right, so with that, I'm gonna stop there, and I hope that was useful, and I'm gonna hand over to Prasad now, who will tell you about how to showcase your skills during an interview. Okay, so I need to stop sharing. Okay. So Prasad, do you want? Okay, you're there.
Yep.
Good. Oh yeah, a quick break. Maybe we should take a quick break as well. It's been an hour. Okay, let's do that. 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and yeah, that sounds good. I'm just gonna put a timer. Is that okay with you, Prasad, as
Oh
well?
yes. Let's take a quick 5 minutes break and let's be back at 10.
Okay, I'm just gonna put a timer in that case. Share screen. Hey, hi, how is that? Look at this timer. Good.
Seems like we are back. And thanks, Chris. Hope everyone is able to hear me. Can someone give me a thumbs back if things are back?
We can hear you.
Perfect. Cool. And yeah, thank you, Chris, for the first half. You really owned it. The way you said own the meeting, you actually did own the whole first half of the session. So thank you for that. Some really great insights. And I'm going to, reference a lot of what you talked about, all right? So when, as a solutions architect, it's more, than just being a technical person. And as Chris mentioned, like I generally say that, solutions architect is an amalgamation of a technical person as well as a good consultant. Obviously it's a technical role, so you need to be technically adept, but you also need to be a great consultant to success, to be a successful solutions architect. And that's what, you need to showcase when you are in a interview. I interview a lot of solutions architect, and I, along with their technical skills, I do see that, are the guys, a good consultant? Will they be able to, it's an external facing role. Solutions architect is an external facing role, so they need to meet clients, whether they are partners, customers, external stakeholders, day in and day out. So that's what I try and, during the interview I try and gauge that whether or not they are a good consultants. Now to, to think about how you should be answering, I do not have any slides here, guys. I'm going to, just speak about, a few things that what I generally see uh, as, the gaps, or what the things that there should be, while you're answering in an interview, that you should be focusing about, that can showcase your consulting skills also. Even if someone is asking you a very technical question, there is an opportunity for you to showcase your consulting skills during that. And to do that, you need to be, understanding what are the qualities of a good consultant, right? And like one of the first quality is about demonstrating your depth of experience, and experience in not just about, technically solving a problem, but also, like getting out of scenarios or solving scenarios uh, that were hard, and so what, you know is important here is that, you know uh, when, as a consultant, when I start speaking to a consultant, it should be evident from what the person is speaking, that when the person is sharing experience, I should be able to, like, understand their credibility and capability, instead of, they sharing it explicitly that, this is what I have done, or, like praising themselves or sharing their resume. In the conversation itself, the consultant should, you should be able to gauge that, the consultant has the experience or the not. And then, obviously as a consultant, you always start from customer. It's like a customer problem. You should be having client first mindset, instead of just thinking about, this is what my past has been, this is how I have solved problem, this is how I'm going to solve this problem. you know work backwards from customers. Like, this is what the customer problem is, and this is the right solutions for the uh, problem. And it might not be, yeah, we, as a good consultant, we do not shy away from, getting out of our comfort zone and trying something new. As a good consultants, we do ask a lot of questions, relevant, powerful, open-ended questions that can help us reveal new insights, right? Now, a lot of times, even customers do not know a lot of things. They do have a high level understanding, but you need to ensure that you're asking the right questions that will help customers think exactly of what their requirements are, so that you are able to, uh, make them understand that, are they thinking in the right direction or they need to pivot. That's what a good consultant does. Instead of starting with a solution, they try and understand if the customer is in the right direction or if there is a pivot required before presenting a solution. And for being a good consultant, one of the most important skill is the people skills. Along with the technical skills, people skills is really important, and that it's even happens in an interview, right? On the other side of the table, they are just people, right? So don't be nervous, don't be scared. They're just another people who are trying to hire. Like right now we are in such a age of, short of technical folks, so everyone wants to hire. When, like, I'm taking an interview, I'm trying to see and provide hints to the candidate to lead them in the right direction, because, uh, we don't want to, interview more and more. We would like to get the right candidate and get them onto the job as soon as possible. So, have those people skills so that you are able to strike that natural conversations in the interview, as well as when you're in a customer meeting, strike that natural conversations, right? And as it has been mentioned multiple times, and most people do understand, but good consultants are excellent listeners, are really excellent listeners. They are very active in listener. And listening is just not about, okay, let the customer keep speaking and I'm not going to, you know like talk or interrupt while customer is speaking. Listener means that we are able to understand what the customer is saying, right? And then we are able to, whatever follow-up questions that you're going to ask, that needs to be based on what customer has spoken about. It's not that you have a list of 10 questions that you have prepared in your mind and you have let customer speak for first 15 minutes, but then you ask those 10 questions only that you have prepared before the meeting. It's about adapting to the situation. Listening means that it's an active listening that you need to do. And yes, we are trusted advisors, right? So, probably I'll be sharing few articles which will, help you understand in depth about, what are the good qualities of a consultant. uh, but let's say if you have a question, and there was a discussion about, C level executives, right? And we'll talk about that also. Let's say in an interview as a solutions architect, right? In an interview, if you are being asked, how would you describe cloud computing? It's a very simple question, and that might be asked at any role. How would you describe cloud computing? Now, your answer will actually reflect with whom you are speaking, right? Now, obviously, you are going to, describe cloud computing, and, do not make it convoluted. Just use the standard definition. It's a very simple definition of cloud computing. It is an on-demand delivery of IT resources over the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing model. That's a quite simple definition. And then do expand. When you have been asked about a question, just don't say one line and stop, right? You need to, expand on it. Like, instead of buying, owning, or maintaining physical data centers and servers, you can access the technology services like computing power, storage, databases on an as need basis from a cloud provider. That's, kind of giving them a bit more context. Now, this is where your consulting skills will start. This is like a standard definition that you have given, you have provided. But after that, this is where, like Ashish uses great analogies to help, other people understand. And this is where, you need to understand that who on the other side of the table might be, right? Now, giving an example of electricity might really be helpful. Now think about, just, and make it very natural as a conversation. Think about that we are in this room and we are getting the electricity. Or, you go into a home and you switch on the light and you start getting electricity and you start consuming it. You do not, care about where this electricity is being generated or how it is being transferred to your home. Whenever you need it, you switch on the light and you start consuming it. And when you do not need it, you switch off the light and you stop consuming it. And you pay only for the amount of units that you have consumed. Now think about cloud computing as a parallel thing for your technology resources that you are able to consume over the internet whenever you need them, and you can stop using them when you don't need them, and you pay only for the consumption. So giving an example like this, analogies like this will help your interviewer understand that, okay, the person is able to communicate even to people who might not be that technical, who might not be able to understand, now let's talk about C-level executive. Here we should also be talking about, uh, advantages of cloud computing, right? Now there are multiple advantages of cloud computing, and it depends upon how much time you have. You can go really dive deep into cloud computing, like for example, the cost benefits that you have. You can trade your fixed expenses for variable expenses. That means your capex that you need to invest in building, owning the data centers, or getting the servers, that can be replaced by variable expenses. You can talk about agility, you can talk about scalability, and so on and so forth. But while you are doing this, that is something that almost everyone who will be appearing for an interview will be telling about all the 5 or 6 benefits of clouds, right? How you can differentiate yourself, how you can make it unique and personalized and showcase your technical skills. In, for example, one of the one of the advantages that you speak about, for example, let's say, stop guessing capacity. Share your experience. Remember I said that a good consultant should be demonstrating the depth of experience. So like, stop guessing capacity. This is how I do it, right? It's like, uh, even in the customer meetings, when I'm talking to a customer and I'm explaining them cloud for the first time, I try and see how I can relate it to my personal experience. I generally start by saying that, when I started my career with a telecom company. In that, like, there was an application that we were rolling out, and we had to guess the capacity. We had to guess the servers that, like, we had to provision to, roll out the application. And even with the best guess estimate that we were able to do, there was no guarantee that whether or not, the capacity that we are provisioning will be overutilized or underutilized. Now, it's more like, we always tend to provision it more, because we do not want bad user experience that comes at a cost. But if you under provision it, then that might mean that the end customers are not having the right experience. So it's always a trade-off, and we generally, enterprises tend to pay more. Now compare that with the cloud computing, knowing that you can scale up and down along with the user demand. You can scale out when the traffic is more, and you can scale in when the traffic is less. That gives you, to ensure, to track your costs closely to the demand. Now, what you have done with that is that you are able to actually relate one of your personal experience with that, and it can be with anything that you do. For example, another cloud benefit is going to global, global deployments in minutes. You can talk about your experience, about how you were, involved in an application that was first regional. Let's say it was launched in Europe region or APAC region, and then after, a few months, the business decided to actually, start operations in another region. And through the cloud, it was really easy to actually deploy the whole application in another region, so that the latency for the end users is really low. That would have been not that simple. It would have been an on-prem premise, because in the on-prem premise, you will need to ensure the whole data center is there, so on and so forth, right? Now, that's how you can bring in your personal experience to showcase your consulting skills. Now there is other thing, like, one of the follow-up questions that I generally ask is that, let's say there is a CEO of a profitable company, and that CEO is very happy with their on-prem IT infrastructure or estate, right? And they do not have any plans to move to cloud near future. How, and you have a meeting with that CEO, how would you convince, or what advantages you would tell to that CEO who is really happy with their on-prem, to move to cloud? Now this is where you need to do a lot of research, and even in the interview, obviously, let's say if it pops up into your interview some unexpected questions that you do not have any time to do the research. How would you handle such a scenario? So for like a CEO, right? You what is more important? Business value propositions, time to market, right? The technology that they use is good, but they do not, it doesn't matter for them which technology is being used behind the scenes, as long as their business objectives are met, as long as their customers are happy, as long as any new feature that they need to release, they're able to release it in a timely fashion without impacting the customer experience. That's what you need to focus about. You need to talk about the advantages of cloud in that manner, that how they can focus more on innovation, how they can, instead of doing the heavy lifting, or as we call here at AWS is undifferentiated heavy lifting of, like maintaining, owning data centers, instead of, like resources, uh, managing the servers, they can actually be working on the business applications and helping customers get the business value out of those applications, right? Here always, like talk about, you know say that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give examples to the CEO of the companies in their specific industry verticals. Let's say the customer is in a manufacturing industry or in retail industry, or let's say aerospace. We are going to give specific examples of how other companies in similar verticals have started moving to the cloud, what success they have been able to achieve, and how moving to cloud is supporting their growth and helping them with the hyper growth. To give analogies to the CEO that what they are missing out on currently, though they are really happy with their on-prem, but technology is moving really fast, and to get into that bandwagon and be one of the early adopters, it is necessary that they start thinking in that direction. I'll also talk about, like the security risks, the like the how the cost consumption can be below, and so on and so forth. So that's how you can, like, for even a straightforward question like, how would you describe cloud computing, you can showcase your consulting skills in multiple ways, uh, by adding your own experience, by bringing in different perspectives into the picture. Now let's say, no, let's switch gears. Let's go into a more specific technical question. What is the difference between a UDP and a TCP? Quite common interview question about what's a UDP and TCP. And what I have seen people generally doing is that obviously telling what the full form of TCP and UDP is, telling about, like TCP is, a three-way handshake connection protocol, whereas UDP is a connectionless protocol. All that is good, like technically the answer is good. I've seldom seen people getting technically UDP or a TCP wrong, right? W- when I see the candidates are raising the bar is that they start giving examples about what a TCP or a UDP would be, right? On their own without me asking them a follow-up question, right? Like I generally ask, like in case if I'm not able to get any examples, I generally ask this question. Okay, this call that we are having on, generally it is a, like a interview over a call, let's say. This call that we are having on, is this a UDP or a TCP that is going on? The video streaming that is happening on, is it a UDP or a TCP? And then in most scenarios candidates do get right. If the candidates get it wrong, obviously then technically they do not have the, like one way is telling them that I do not know it, I'll have to check, which is fine. That is like earning trust. You are not actually, like trying to guess and you're giving wrong information. But in case if you say that video streaming is over TCP, probably I would say like that technically the person, depending upon what role they have applied for and what the requirements is, I might be like, technically the candidate might disqualified. But in one of the scenario, one of the candidate did say upfront while explaining what TCP and UDP is, that this call Prasad, and he, like, see, you can always talk to interviewer as if you're talking to a friend. That person was so impersonable, so, like confident, and made it like affable and made it so engaging. And while, like explaining, he said, and by the way, Prasad, the call that we are having is actually going on UDP at this moment. If the bandwidth is low, then you might see some packets dropping. You might see my video getting distorted. And that's what UDP is. That, the order of the packets don't matter. You do not get an acknowledgement of everything. So the stream might be wavy compared to any HTTP request that you might be doing. That goes on over a TCP, right? And then there's a three-way handshake. So he did that with an example, a specific example that made me visualize. So consultants are really good at making other people visualize what they are thinking, right? So even if it's a very technical question, then instead of just defining them and telling them what it technically means, you can always showcase your, like consulting says, I was really confident, in putting that person into the next round, because I knew that, if that person will be hired, that person will be able to strike those conversations with customers and will be able to speak the language that the customers will be able to understand, right? uh, let's see, how much time do we have? Yeah, we do have some time, so I can probably give few more examples. So let's say there is another question on what are the key considerations when setting up a DR solution for a customer. Now DR is disaster recovery, right? So one of the common questions is, what is the difference between a high availability or a disaster recovery? Or if you're setting up a disaster recovery for a customer, what are the considerations that you take? Again, quite common question based on the role that you apply, but these are quite common technical question, and this is something that people should be knowing it as a solutions architect, right? Because we do talk about resiliency, right? So in case, if there is something down, you need to ensure that that particular, application, service, or solution becomes up. Now, the technical answers to this is that RTO and RPO, right? You need to understand what the customer RTO and RPO is. And guys, if you are not aware of what RTO and RPO is, please do read about them. Those are technical terms that you should be aware of. What is a recovery time objective and recovery point objective, and what is a hot standby versus a warm standby versus a cold standby is, right? But now think about, while answering this question, right, what you can do to make them visualize it, right? How you can give them scenarios, that in which scenario customers should be thinking about a low RTO and a low RPO, and how is that going to impact their cost, versus when it is not a business critical application or a mission critical application, or a customer can withstand our downtime, then how you can actually save them cost by having a high RTO and a high RPO. So look, high RTO and a high RPO means that if the application is down for, let's say, 3 hours, it is still fine. The customer would not be losing business, right? But in some scenarios, like for example, think about Amazon.com. Like, let's say if Amazon.com is down for 3 hours, how much business Amazon would be losing, right? Or for that matter, Netflix. Let's say if Netflix is down for 3 hours, right? Can you imagine the customer experience that would be for Netflix users if the Netflix is down for 3 hours or so? So they need to have really, really low RTO and RPO. So you have to think about those examples and give them examples in which scenario they should be using a low RTO and low RPO, and that would mean that they. So this is where you can, go into hot standby. Hot standby would mean that uh, even if there is a blip, your standby is always ready to take that, like a load, and so it will be a seamless experience for your end users, versus a cold standby where, there would be some manual intervention that will be required. And even if it's not a manual intervention, it's not that, there will be zero downtime or near zero downtime. So you need to kind of, like, think about those examples and give them. Like, I come from I started as a telecom background, so I start talking about, like, let's say if we are on a call, right? Then let's say the primary server through which we are having this call gets disconnected, or it shut downs, or some catastrophe happen in that area and that particular uh, server is offline. Then if my call drops, that means it is not a hot standby, right? It will be a warm standby if if the connection doesn't drop at all, and if I'm seamlessly able to continue my conversation with the other person on over the call, that means it's a hot standby because the other server has taken over and it has taken all the session exactly the same way. But if it doesn't happen, it's not a hot standby. Then it can be a warm standby or a cold standby. Now, what will be a warm standby? The connection was lost, but the call did not disconnected. There was some brief interruption. I was not able to hear the other person's voice and vice versa for, let's say, 10 seconds or 30 seconds, but the call got connected again. The same session got connected again. That's a warm standby. There was another server that was ready, not instantly, but immediately the server was able to take it over, get all the details from the database of, okay, this is the session that was going on between these two people or hundreds of people, right? Hundred of people we having on particular thing, and it was able to reestablish that connection. Warm standby. Cold standby would mean that the connection disconnected, the call drops. Now I'll have to make another call, which is fine, but still there needs to be another server. The next section is taken by the another server. Let's say if there is no another server at all, right? Then that would mean that I will not be able to make that call at all till the time this particular server comes up again, right? So that's the kind of, take your own examples, but try and give, like some personalized examples, right? If possible, that will showcase your consulting skills, and that will showcase that you can simplify it for the users to make it them visualize what's happening. Because being a technical person, you might be knowing very well what a hot standby versus a warm standby versus a cold standby is, or what the RTO and RPO is, and not that. So these are technical jargons, you can call them, but if you're able to explain this technical jargons in a way that you are able to communicate with the C-level executives, that's what differentiates you as a good consultant. Cool. See, and I can go on a lot about this topic because I do take a lot of interviews, and I do have a lot of examples here. But let me stop here and see if there are any questions that I can address. Yeah, I think there are some generic questions. Probably we can switch gears and let Jamila talk about how you should be preparing for your AWS certifications. So yeah, and we have half an hour left, so I'll give the last half an hour to Jamila. Chris, would you be able to add Jamila to the stage?
Oh, good.
Great. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Prasad and Chris, for sharing the details, and it was very useful, very interactive sessions. I personally enjoyed by sitting in the background and listening all the awesome tips and tricks you guys were sharing. So I hope you all in the chat. Hi, I see everyone is greeting me. Thank you very much. I hope people watching the sessions, they all enjoyed. And I'm going to start sharing my part about how to prepare for AWS exams and certifications and how to pass your certifications successfully. So before starting diving deep into details, I'd like to give quick background about someone is saying JJ always smiling. Yes, I do. This is my superpower, to smile all the time. Anyway, I got distracted, sorry. Just to give you a quick background about myself and the certifications I gained. So I cannot say that I have 12 or 13 AWS certifications that some of my colleagues have in the team or in the organization. But what I can say that I joined AWS last year in February. And within 2 weeks of my tenure when I joined, during my onboarding, I got AWS Solutions Architect Associate certification. And then within 10 months of my tenure, I got SA Pro certification. And then within a year, I got security specialty certification. So the thing I'd like to start with, to become a successful solutions architect, it's not only important to gain all the certifications. Well, of course, if you want to go ahead and get all these certifications out there, please go ahead, please do it. Kudos to you that you have that passion and time and energy to get all the certifications. But what I did and what I think is also good to do to kind of narrow down the scope and to understand why do you need these certifications, right? Like, what are the certifications out there will help you in which cases? For example, in my case, as a solutions architect who joined with a junior level and does not have like a great technical background or computer science skills a lot, it was important for me to be able to drive the conversations with my customers in a manner that will fit my customers' expectations. For that, when I started, of course, Solutions Architect Associate is the kind of the basics that for you to understand as an SA to drive the conversation with your customers, right? When they talk about services, so you need to understand which services they're talking about, what are the features, so you can actually take away some of the questions, do some research, and then come back. As a next step then, once you know kind of the basics, it is great to understand the bigger picture. Like when the customers are saying, hey, we're using these services and how they're getting actually connected, we're having issues here, this is the IP address, this is the overlapping things. And then I understood that, okay, I need to prepare for SA Pro, because the professional certification will give me that kind of knowledge where I will understand the complex architectures and complex customer scenarios to drive and to deliver the customer results as well. So this was my main kind of objectives within a year to get AWS certifications. And also in the meantime, of course, what I really liked about SA Pro is that it is quite difficult exam. It is complex, and it does not involve just one service. So there will be scenarios about security, there will be scenarios about databases, machine learning. So actually you get a sense about all the different services, and it will test you to analyze the customer scenario and pick and choose the best solution, which will consist of different AWS services. It was needed, and I thought it is really necessary for my role, for my customers, and I started to prepare. So, of course, I will share with you my tips and tricks how to prepare for a Solutions Architect Associate, Professional, or any other certifications as well. So it's the resources that I will be sharing, they're not particularly targeted for one specific AWS certification. So it will be just resources, and you will be able to tailor based on your certification needs. So alongside with the resources that you will be getting today, and I will share it with you all, I'd like to share another point which probably some people might ignore, and I'm one of those people who advocates internally, even in AWS, when sometimes people are pinging me, hey, JJ, we are preparing for this certification, can you give us some tips and tricks? And of course, one of my kind of tips and tricks that I share with all of my colleagues internally and with some people externally as well is that alongside to Googling and getting the resources that are needed, it is crucially important to connect with people, like-minded people, and I don't know, you can call it find a mentor. You can call it study buddy. You can call it someone with whom you will be practicing the same thing, and you will give the motivation to each other. So I'll give you an example. Within a year, when I got my Solutions Architect Professional certification, we had internally some kind of a document where some senior essays, they were putting their names down that they are happy to mentor people, and they were mentioning that they obtained these and those certifications, right? And of course, there were lots of senior people in the list. And what I did, like personally, I looked at this list, and I started to monitor within like a couple of weeks internally about these people, like what they're posting, what are their comments, because mentorship is not about, like my personal opinion, mentorship is not about sharing the knowledge, technical knowledge. Of course, you can get technical knowledge anywhere, Googling it, watching some videos on YouTube, watching, of course, our lovely technical trainer Ashish's videos on BeSA channel. So it's not that difficult to get like technical actual knowledge, right? But what it is important during the preparation is that finding person who will have the same energy, the same mentality, and the same passion and empathy what you're going through. Like, it's not just technical thing, but it is also something that person will understand and will push you when you need it. Not unnecessarily, hey, you got a deadline, you need to pass it by this time, or who will just cancel the meetings, like there's some energy involved in that. So that's why I took it really seriously, alongside to prepare with technical, but also finding a person who can push me when I need it. And I will be honest, I will be vulnerable here, saying that yes, I found one person, and you can find his name on my LinkedIn when I shared about my BeSA Pro certification preparation tips and tricks. So I found that person, and like I put my name down in that list, in that document. By the way, you can do the same within your organization. If you're technically gifted, you have great technical knowledge, and you want to mentor someone internally, it will be great visibility for you. It will be great for you as well to refresh your knowledge, and for juniors as well to learn more. So I put my name down, and then, to be honest, so I wanted that person to mentor me with BeSA Pro, but somehow I managed to forget about the fact that I put my name down. And what happened is that he reached out to me first. He pinged me on Slack that, hey, you put your name down, would you like to connect for BeSA Pro? And at that moment, honestly, I realized that is the person with whom I'd like to work on the certification, because he unintentionally pushed me to, let's get started, right? In a nice manner, of course. So I told him that, hey, is that okay if I schedule a bi-weekly meetings at this or that time? What is suitable for you? So we agreed on a specific day. It was Fridays. We blocked our time for half an hour bi-weekly, just to kind of connect together and share some ideas, and of course me, who is preparing for the certification, and if I have any questions, I will ask him on the meeting. And I will be again vulnerable and honest that when I was preparing for the exam, I had couple of times I had some breakdowns, right? I was really feeling frustrated that I'm not able to pass the exam. It is difficult. I don't understand this and that. So I had like a specific topics that were really, really tough for me. And having no kind of technical background, especially with these networking things, I don't know, with all these like details, CIDR range, etc. I was really, really struggling, right? In the meantime, that person, the mentor, while he was explaining like Ashish with all the examples with apples and bananas, he was also being empathetic, listening and helping emotionally, just to pass this stage, just to support you that, hey, you will do it. And also, given the fact that he has decades of experience in IT, he was telling me that he failed his BeSA Pro as well. He failed this and that. And he was telling me that it is okay to fail. If you fail, If you think that you will not be able to make it, you will get that at some point. So I just wanted to share you the background, that it's not about just the resources. You get the resources, you Google it, and then you look at it and say, hey, cool, I'm going to prepare. So just don't be narrow-minded that you have the resources, you have the technical knowledge, you pass them, now you're ready for interview, and then you will get a job. So it's not as straightforward as it looks like. It must be some kind of a journey. Even during the interview, when interviewer asks you, okay, you got 13 certifications, AWS certifications, let's say. What is your interest actually? Why did you get 13 certifications, right? If you are able to relate and say that, yes, getting certifications is my passion. I had a variety of customers, so I needed these certifications for my self-confidence, so I can relate with my customers, so I can dive deep into every single specific domain, then yes, great. And you need to be able to back this up with data by sharing your scenarios and examples, because it will be really difficult to say that, yes, I had a customer who needed dive deep in AI and ML, but didn't have any specialists in the organization, in the company. So I was the one who was the brain of all these things. But in my case, my personal opinion with my role, I try to focus on the certifications specifically to my role, to my customers, and try to address. So security specialty came next, because nearly all of my customers in the previous team, in the new team, they are all asking about security. Of course, security is our #1 priority at AWS. And I didn't want to kind of stop the conversation there, because they were asking about other security details. Hey, can we bring our key to encrypt the traffic? And me personally, I didn't know at that time, can you bring it or not? What is the benefit if they bring their own key? What is the benefit if AWS is managing their keys? So like all these details, like being an SA, as Prasad mentioned, that you need to understand your customer's problem and dive deep into details and try to visualize what is the problem. So I couldn't do that, although I was doing research about security, but it wasn't giving me like enough dive deep that I needed, right? So I thought I need security specialty certification to understand more. And to be honest, it was a correct and right decision to actually go ahead and take the exam, because I learned a lot. Honestly, I learned just tons of knowledge that I practice even now. Like after passing the certification, gaining the certification, I drive the conversation with my customers internally when I connect with colleagues, if they have any questions about security, etc. I cannot tell myself that I'm a security specialist, but at least I can drive the conversation on a needed level with my customers. So this is the background. Before you start taking any certifications, try to understand your end goal, try to understand your customers, why you're doing it, and then tailor your journey along the way. So it's not just to get all the certifications. It looks great on the CV, I'll get a job, it will be paying well. So while it is true, try to kind of focus on the main objectives and the important things. So I talked a lot because this is again one of my passionate areas of the subject. Finding a mentor who will push you through the process, not only technically, but who will be able to support you emotionally as well, while you are doubting yourself, thinking you will not be able to pass because others are technically gifted, they know a lot, they are better than you, they have education from there, from here, you don't have it, and you are limited. So that person should be pushing in a nice way that you will gain confidence and of course sharing some technical knowledge as well. And to all the BeSA participants and the people who are active on the chat, as I can see, and I'd like to challenge you all by why not connecting with like-minded people in our LinkedIn group? Why not posting a post and saying that, hey, I'm preparing for this certification, I'm aiming to complete by this time. Is there anyone else in this time zone, we can connect on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and just to brainstorm ideas, right? You can just talk about security, you can talk about networking, about databases with that person. Maybe there will be things that you missed in the meantime, or discuss the question that person will be able to explain you in a simple way that you wouldn't probably get it from anywhere else. So we're all unique in terms of like how we process the information and how we deliver the information. So another tip, please feel free to connect on our LinkedIn group and with people, and try to find someone, or maybe create a group of people where you will gather together, even in real life. If you are in the same city, in the same time zone, you will grow your network, right? It is one of the important steps for you in your career as well. I see another question on the chat, that how to get a mentor. Well, one of them, as I said, you can connect in our LinkedIn group, and you can find a mentor there. It doesn't mean that mentor should and will be mentoring you based on your gaps, but it will be like they will be mentoring you on the technical or non-technical things, whatever you are looking for. And I see my colleagues are.
I can take up that question, how to
Yeah.
find a mentor. Not an easy thing, very frankly, but there are few ways that you can do it. Uh, Reaching out directly to someone on LinkedIn saying that, hey, please mentor me, might
Yeah.
help. Cold calling might help, but might not, right?
Mhm.
There are ways that you can do it more targeted way. And I'll try and find that post, like that I put some time back. But you must have heard about AWS heroes, or anyone, like APN ambassadors, or like even anyone who has actually been part of the community builder. So they are a group of people whom you might reach out, and while reaching out, so let me do one thing. How much time do we have? Time, right? And because this is an important question, it's an important topic, let me spend some time and let me see if.
Prasad, just to give you a
Sorry.
heads up. No, that's all right. That's okay. I just wanted to share my screen as well for those like technical resources for the people, because I
Oh
was
yes,
talking
please do,
about.
please do.
Right. Yeah. I was going to ask Jamila, you're going to spend some time on this?
Yes,
Oh yeah,
like just a few minutes, just to
go
show
ahead.
them, show the people what are the resources I am personally using, and I was using even before joining AWS. I'm more than happy to share that in our LinkedIn group and drive the conversation if anyone has any questions.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. It will take a few minutes, Prasad, don't worry.
Take your time, take your
Take your
time. This is
time.
super
Yeah.
useful. This is really super duper useful.
Yeah.
Thank you, I think. And now, I hope you're able to see my screen. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Chris, for managing all the heavy lifting in the background.
It's been Ash's job.
Great. Yeah. Well, we can't replace Ashish, but it is what it is. Great. So one of the resources that I used before joining AWS, which really, really helped me to pass and to go along through the interview, to pass my SA associate within like my second week at AWS. And of course, I didn't stop there with my SA Pro. It helped with my security specialty as well. Is Tutorials Dojo. It's very dear to my heart. It's very helpful resource that I really, really love recommending everyone. And I'm not getting any percentage for PR, trust me, and they probably don't know me. It's just me who really likes to share with people useful resources. This is Tutorials Dojo's landing page, specifically cheat sheets. So once you kind of obtain the knowledge about AWS services, like you read the white papers, you built a project, you did some hands-on, you kind of did all the hard work, but you have like 1 or 2 weeks before the exam, and you're kind of nervous that, oh my goodness, should I go again through all these white papers, read all over again, to kind of refresh my knowledge and pass the exam? And the answer in this case based on my personal experiences, no. Tutorials Dojo has AWS cheat sheets, which is like gift from God, which is really, really helpful. Specifically, I really like the fact that they have comparison of AWS services, right? So in AWS, like I say, associate certifications with SA Pro, you will have a lot of like scenarios where you will have to choose which service to use. For example, here you see that like, do you need to use Amazon S3, Elastic Block Storage, or Elastic File Storage, right? Or do you, like with RDS and DynamoDB, I think it will be pretty straightforward. Like if it's a relational database, you will go with RDS. If it's non-relational, you will go with DynamoDB. But sometimes you need to understand which storage service based on that scenario will be useful. So here, it's a really nice table. I do use it sometimes even on my day-to-day life when I need a quick information without me going internally, looking into documents, reading through, blah, blah, blah. I need to save some time on this, and I need to quickly get that knowledge, like latency, right? What was the latency or performance of S3? Yes, I can Google it, but if I need to compare it quickly and understand the big picture in a short time of period, for me personally, Tutorials Dojo is my go-to place. And again, it's not a PR, they don't know about me, and it's just my personal opinion, my personal usage. It's not related to my employer or anything else. It's just me. Another great service, so the practice exams, another question that I'm getting from people, practice exams, Tutorials Dojo has practice exams as well. So I personally using and keep using, will be using probably Tutorials Dojo's practice exams. It is probably the most useful practice exams set that I've ever came across, because they have a timed mode, they have educational mode. For example, you answer the question and then you hit the button, it says it's wrong, and then it explains why it's wrong, why it should be, why the answer should be this or not that. It's really, really cool. So based on those answers and explanations, which is not just copy pasted from white papers, but rather like a person sat and wrote all these details in a nice manner. Tutorials Dojo's practice exams, and also some you can find any other practice exams from Udemy as well. So if we go back to training materials, second my go-to place is a Cloud Guru. Like for my security specialty exam, I needed to learn, really learn about security and all the services we provide to our customers, what are the benefits, which cases to use what. My go-to place in this case was a Cloud Guru. And I will be honest, again, it's my personal opinion. I learned a lot during the course. And what is another important point that I learned and I appreciate when I watch any sorts of trainings, is that it's not about people delivering technical content. It's about the analogy, like Ashish is doing, and they're trying to deliver that technical material in a way that it will not bore the listener, but rather it will encourage them to keep going, right? And in this case, with A Cloud Guru, specifically the security specialty exam that I took, it was, how to say, they were giving examples, and one of the examples I still remember, they were giving examples about, Ryan Cronenberg was talking about John Adams. And then he said, hey, there was a movie actually about John Adams. If you haven't watched it, I really recommend it. And what do you think I did? I paused it there. I was like, okay, I haven't heard about it. I need to go and do some research and watch that movie. I did that, right? And I really enjoyed. I learned a lot about the history, about US history. Like just one training can actually open up other things. And then when I talk with my colleagues, I say, hey, I watched these trainings on A Cloud Guru. Ryan Cronenberg was mentioning this and that. So it's kind of a great conversational point as well. So it's not just about the training itself, but I really enjoy when the people, they put themselves as a whole, not just as in a professional manner that, okay, this is the EC2, this is the S3, okay, carry on. So this is my personal opinion. I like watching in this way, and I keep learning, and it helps me to understand better. And keeps me entertaining, to be honest. So I'm not that kind of person who will dive deep into technical things and will enjoy. No, I need to be entertained as well in the meantime. This is me, people. Yeah, I'm being brutally honest and vulnerable here. Another point, of course, you can go ahead with Udemy. So in Udemy, if you literally just Google it, top AWS courses on Udemy, you will have a list of different AWS certifications, trainings that are provided from different resources. I personally used Neil Davis. He is Solutions Architect Associate practice exams, probably the most hardest exams I've ever came across. And but I'm not complaining. Like when I was getting like 60-70% from his exam, I was like, okay, I'm gonna bloody crush the actual exam because it was really tough. But I learned a lot, and I'm really grateful to all his resources, all his trainings as well. So I know my colleague Chris, she was using, I think, Stefan Marek's courses. So it's absolutely depends on you, what you prefer, what type of learning materials or trainers style you prefer. So yeah, these were my resources, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I will hand over to Prasad if you want to talk about mentorship. If not,
I just want to add something.
Mhm.
There's some feedback. Okay, do you get the feedback?
What? Where?
Okay, that's fine. I'll go very quick. Sorry for the feedback. Someone mentioned, one of the benefits of taking the cloud practitioner exam. It's
Jamila,
easy for.
you might have to mute probably. Seems like Chris is.
So it's easy for the solutions architect or people with technical background because it's an exam that is designed mostly for salespeople or people who are not really into technicals. But you get that 50% discount when you pass that exam, and that applies to your next exam. So someone mentioned that, and I wanted to make sure everybody is aware of this. When you pass an exam, you get a 50% discount for the next exam. So clearing out the cloud practitioner to actually pay half price the solution architect is actually a really good thing to know about. Prasad, I know you wanted to share about mentoring, so go ahead, please.
Almost up on time, so probably we can take it up next week, and I can share a more detailed version of how you can think about finding a mentor. So let's add that to our next week agenda. But yeah, a bang on solutions architect and cloud practitioner certification. I always see cloud practitioner as a good checkpoint, a good milestone, to achieve, to get the major, goal of solutions architect. Within 4 weeks, depending upon what stage of your preparation are, 4 weeks should be enough for you to get a cloud practitioner certification. And if you're planning for 8 weeks of your, solutions architect associate certification or something like that, or 12 weeks maximum, a good mid checkpoint would be 4 to 6 weeks to get the cloud practitioner. And it doesn't cost much. In fact, I did write, let me share that article here in. No, not this one. Give me just one more moment. Let me see if I can find that article. Yeah. Why I recommend achieving it with cloud practitioner certification before attempting solutions architect. Let me do that. As like Chris mentioned, there's not much difference depending upon because you get 50%. So this is a bit old article, but the from in terms of the actual numbers, it turned out to be $25 difference between if you attempt both versus just one. So yeah, uh, cool. I think we are on time. A lot of good insights shared by, in fact, Jamila right now on the certifications, right? Irrespective of, I have used Ryan Kurenberg for my solutions architect associate. For I think professional, I use Stephen Marek, and for I have around 8 AWS certifications. So I've used almost tutorials Jojo. I use it a lot for the practice exams. Not only that they are great in terms of the timed, but I have seen the questions in tutorials to be closest to the one that comes in exam somehow, so it gives a good, practice test. So, and there's another good resource, Wiz Labs. I'm not sure if you guys have used it. I have used that also. It also is quite good in terms of the practice exams. They do provide some free practice tests also. You can use that too. uh, but yeah, that's pretty much, there were a lot of things that I thought I will share while Jamila was speaking, but yeah, she covered it all actually.
Yeah.
So great job.
Great. Thanks, Prasad. Thanks, Jamila, and thanks everyone for
Is
joining.
James on the? I
Thanks,
can see James on
James.
the chat, but is he on
Yeah,
the backstage? Can we add
I
him?
wanted to say thanks, James, as well. He's not there. He's not on StreamYard, so I cannot put him on the screen. But I
Okay.
want to say thanks, James, because he's also in the background answering the questions, so he's also doing a lot here. Great. Thanks, and see you next week, everyone.
All next
Great.
week.
Thank you very much, everyone. And I think probably next on one of our next session we can cover the point how to find a mentor.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
Yeah.
Great.
Bye
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye bye.